Welcome. In this explainer, we're diving deep into reproductive health. It's a topic that touches every single one of us, shapes our societies, and is right on the cutting edge of science. So let's get right into it. Okay, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the basics, what reproductive health really means. Then we'll zoom out to the big picture of population and birth control, tackle the very personal choices around pregnancy, look at the public health challenge of STIs, and wrap up with the amazing science that helps people navigate infertility. So first things first, what do we actually mean when we say reproductive health? You might think you know, but the real definition is probably a lot bigger and honestly a lot more interesting than you'd expect. According to the World Health Organization, it's about a state of total well-being. See, it's not just about biology or not having a disease. It's the whole package, our physical, our emotional, and even our social health when it comes to reproduction. It's a much more complete picture of what it means to be healthy. All right, now let's scale that idea up, way up. We're going to look at how all of this plays out on a global stage, focusing on one of the biggest public health challenges out there, population growth and how we manage it. To get some perspective, let's rewind the clock. Back in 1900, the entire population of the planet was just about 2 billion people. That's it. For pretty much all of human history, that number had been growing really, really slowly. And then, boom, in just a little over a century, everything changed. Thanks to better medicine and living conditions, our population just exploded, rocketing past 7 billion. And that kind of rapid growth put a massive strain on everything, forcing us to think differently. Well, that challenge led to a full-on revolution in birth control. This table breaks down all the different strategies we came up with. You've got everything from natural methods to physical barriers like condoms to hormonal pills and even permanent surgical options. Each one works in a totally different way. And here you can see two really common but totally different approaches. On the left, you've got the condom, a simple disposable barrier. And on the right, that's an IUD, an intrauterine device. That's a long-term solution that a doctor inserts and it can work for years. Now, for those who are sure they don't want any more children, there are permanent options. What you're seeing here is a tubectomy, a surgical procedure for women. It's incredibly effective, but, and this is a big but, it's very, very difficult to reverse. So it's a huge life decision. Okay. Next up is one of the most complex and sensitive parts of reproductive health, the termination of pregnancy. This is where personal health decisions run right into some of our deepest social and legal debates. So why is this so fiercely debated all over the world? Well, it's because it touches on everything all at once. Our emotions, our ethics, our religious beliefs, and our social values. There just aren't any easy answers, and that's why the conversation is always so charged. The medical term for this is medical termination of pregnancy, or MTP, and to give you a sense of the scale of this, listen to this number. Somewhere between 45 and 50 million MTPs are performed around the world every single year. To try and manage this complex issue, many governments have legalized it, but with really strict rules. It's often only allowed under very specific conditions, like if the mother's life is in danger, if there are serious issues with the fetus, or in awful situations like rape. Let's shift gears a bit. We're now going to turn to another absolutely critical part of reproductive health, understanding and preventing sexually transmitted infections, or STIs. This is a massive public health issue that affects everyone. You know, not all STIs are the same. There's a huge range. Some, like chlamydia, can be completely cured if you catch them early. But then there are others, like hepatitis B and HIV, that can stay with you for life and can be incredibly serious, even fatal. And here's the part that's really concerning. The data shows over and over again that young people, teenagers and young adults between 15 and 24 are the group that's most affected. This just makes clear, honest education about prevention absolutely essential. But here's the good news. This is largely preventable. It really comes down to a few simple, powerful rules. Using protection, being careful about your partners, and, if you're ever in doubt, getting checked out by a doctor. These steps are our best defense. All right, for our final topic, we're going to talk about infertility. For so many couples, the dream of having a child is a real struggle, and this is where modern science has stepped in with some incredible solutions. Infertility is a common medical problem, but it often comes with a social one too. In so many places, there's this unfair tendency to blame the woman. But the reality is, the cause can be with the male partner, the female partner, or sometimes it's a mix of factors from both. And this diagram shows one of the most famous solutions, in vitro fertilization, or IVF. It's basically a three-step dance. First, you collect eggs and sperm. Second, fertilization happens outside the body in a lab. And third, a healthy embryo is transferred back to the uterus to hopefully grow into a baby. But while IVF is a medical marvel, there's a huge catch. It's incredibly expensive and not available everywhere. It's just not an option for most people. And that stands in pretty stark contrast to another beautiful way to build a family, adoption, which is about giving a loving home to a child who needs one. And that really leaves us with a big, important question to think about. As science keeps pushing the boundaries and giving us new ways to create life, how do we make sure we're also taking care of the millions of children already in the world who just need a family? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.